Hello viewers, you are watching the Policy Times and I am with Dr. Tausif Malik on our show Thursday with Dr. T, and we bring a very new and different global, national, international issue and try to educate, create awareness and to provide necessary and possible solutions with a positive motto that everything has a positive end and positive aspect. So Dr. T, being Mr. Positive, would like to have his views on today's most important and interesting topic. So today, first of all, we stand with the parents, kids, and every family member of all those who die in homicides or due to gun violence in the United States. Dr. Malik is an NRI and he is the first global chair, Muslims Democrats Abroad, and former treasurer, Democrats Abroad India, Democratic Party USA's international chapter. So, Dr. Malik, first of all, welcoming you to the show, I want to ask you uh, if you could kindly define what is Muslim Democrats Abroad, and then maybe we can start the session, the interview.
Good evening to Akram and his team, and good evening to people who are gonna watch this video. Muslim Democrats Abroad is we started this initiative in America. We start a caucus. Caucus means a like-minded group of people come together and start something together. It's called a caucus. So when I was a former treasurer to Democratic Party, Indian chapter called the Democrats Abroad India, I spoke to two sisters. One is Ghazala Salam and Zarina, Sister Zarina. They have been pioneers in the work of getting the Muslim Americans on political landscape. And recently, we also hosted a conference in Washington on 4th of July, which was a huge success where Ilhan Omar, the news bite went viral. The primary focus of Muslim Democrats abroad is to inculcate political awareness amongst the American Muslim population. Because if you're politically aware of your rights, your contribution towards democracy increases.
Absolutely.
So our initiative is to establish various country chapters, set up chairmen, and encourage everyone to participate in voting. Now we have a very fantastic thing called Vote from Abroad.
Hmm.
So any American has this privilege of registering themselves online and voting into every governmental elections of America.
Excellent.
So this is an initiative to promote Democratic Party's values to American Muslims.
That's quite visionary and very foresighted. And I think there are a lot of NRIs who stay abroad, a lot of people who do not participate in Indian democracy, often in the electoral process. So this is a very strong message to lakhs and millions of Indian uh, people who are residing abroad for their jobs, other professions. They can learn a lot from this model, how they are promoting American democracy abroad. Now, coming to the subject, today we want to talk about that two, three aspect of it. If you compare terrorism with gun violence, the impact of both is not less. It ends with death and a number of deaths. Today, we'll try to understand the death because America has pioneered the concept of terrorism and has been able to uh, control it. But we will try to understand the amount of death that took place uh, through terrorism and the number of people die through gun violence, and what is America's policy and proactiveness to address terrorism and to address gun violence. We see a very strong, sharp disparity in terms of proactive policy intervention when it comes to terrorism and when it comes to gun violence. To start off, I want to present some facts, and Dr. Malik will share his views and comments on that. That if you see 9/11 took place in 2001. Approximately, there are different figures about that. about 3,000 to 4,000 people died on that day in September 11, 2001, and approximately 6,000 more people were injured in that case. America since 19, if I see, so if we compare the gun violence and death due to gun violence and death due to terrorism, according to a National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism, that's a study and a think tank based in US, the total attacks that took place from 1995 to 2006 to 16 to 17, there were around 620 terror attacks took place, and approximately 4 to 5,000 deaths took place, followed by the all the terror incidents together. 4 to 5,000 Americans died basically out of terrorism. Now coming to terrorism, death due to terrorism globally, the figure says that Middle East and Africa region, MENA region, approximately 33,000 plus terror incidents took place. More than 91,000 deaths took place due to terrorism. In the South Asia, again, the numbers are 31,000. When we talk about during a span of 2001 to 2017, this is research done by India Today, which says that South Asia faced approximately 31,000 terror cases, where 60,000 people died. And Africa, again, about 9,000 such terror attacks took place, and 40,000 people died. So comparing this, America saw merely a few thousand deaths due to terrorism, but America's policy on terrorism today is one of the most dangerous and deadly in terms of the kind of investments, the kind of defense trade that took place due to terrorism globally, and the kind of campaign advocacy and lobbying that is done in the name of terrorism. On the other hand, I'd like to present some facts on gun violence. It is said a research, it's called uh, Gun Violence Archive. It says that 140% of the Americans over the age of 50 years, they own a gun. 1,300 children below the age of 17 die due to gun violence, and the total number is around 5,790 kids and children. They suffer some kind of wounds due to the gun violence, the private, and we call it homicide. Now, to give you some more facts, though there are 20, in 2017, almost 14,500 death of people, homicide cases took place in US. That's a huge number, and the number of terror death was not even a few percentage of that. Dr. Malik, how do you? What is your first reaction on some facts that I have presented?
We America has a culture of guns, and since the Second Amendment, every American has the right to own the gun. So, as a freedom of speech, we also have freedom of owning a gun. So, without a license, I can still own a gun. Okay.
That's very shocking.
Yeah, and that's my right. Now, when the legislation was passed, it was supposed to be passed with the pistol gun.
Hmm.
But now everyone assumes every firearm comes under this act.
Hmm.
So when you see a pistol, it has six bullets. So it can be mass murder. It can be maximum 6 people.
Hmm.
But when you take semi-automatic vehicle, it goes into hundreds and thousands. So when first round, they shoot, at least 17, 20 people die.
Hmm.
So gun, it didn't, the legislation, first amendment, second amendment didn't talk about
Hmm.
semi-automatic, automatic guns. It was this thing. And it was protecting, because America was a Wild West country.
Right.
Right. Now, this law, again, from my perspective, was not correct. The reason is this land was owned by Native Americans.
Hmm.
And the European settlers pushed this agenda of having guns to take over the lands of the native people. This is my viewpoint. This is not any political view. This is my when I read American history, it's very sad that the
Mhm.
government paid people to kill Native Americans. It's very scary. It's the dark history of America. So, but it's right. You were there because it's a wild country. You needed to protect. You might be not the aggressor, but just to protect, you might have a gun. But now it's become you go to a supermarket like Walmart and you can buy a semi-automatic gun without doing a background check on mental ability, criminal history, whatever. Just go and pick up a gun.
Right.
And
Now,
if you, yeah,
Dr. Malik, you have been advocating the fact that you have been saying that if Malala Yousufzai can get a Nobel Prize, so is every American children who are fighting against the gun violence and who are the victim of the gun violence. Can you elaborate on the fact? So before just to give a background of Malala Yousufzai, Malala Yousufzai is a Pakistani activist who was shot by a Taliban gunman in 2012, and she was shot, hit in the head, and she somehow recovered after 2 years of time, and she has been doing the activism of promoting girls education in Pakistan and the Taliban region. now now Dr. Malik, I want to come back to you now on this, that if Malala Yousufzai can get a Nobel Prize, why do you say that every children on America, of America who is the victim of this gun violence or who has died for this gun violence or who are protesting against it should also get a Nobel Prize?
I come from city of Chicago. Now, city of Chicago is one of the most amazing place on the planet. It's one of the best beautiful cities. But there's an area in city of Chicago. It's called South Side. Every weekend, every night, kids are being killed by this stupid gun violence. And majority of those kids in the neighborhood now want to get out of this drugs, mafia, gun violence, and live a normal life. But getting an access to gun in America is very easy, legally. And because of that, it becomes a very, very difficult situation for those kids to go to school. That's one. Now, this only instant I talked about city of Chicago. But if you just go back to the news section of Google, you'll find every weekend we have gun shooting. Now, the people who are carrying this gun attacks, majority of them or nearly everyone is a white guy, radicalized, and they think immigrants is a problem, but they themselves were the grandchildren, means the grandfathers were already immigrants from Europe. So America is not a white country; it's in the Native Americans only. Now, because of this psychological problem, they go on shooting spree. And when somebody dies, he doesn't die alone, his entire family dies, his community dies, right? Now, my question comes, why is this bias? A girl in Pakistan gets shot, she gets a Nobel Prize for promoting education, but there are a lot of girls from America, high schoolers, middle schoolers, kindergartens, they want to go in school and have a normal life. They want to play
Right.
basketball. So why there's this bias from the world? Malala Zai's this thing. We have been having gun violence for a long time. So I always say to people is if Malala Yousufzai gets an Nobel Prize, then the authorities offering these prizes to all these people, successful people, should also give to kids in America to be for us because kids in America face more gun violence than any developed country on the planet, any developing country also on the planet. Compare with India. India is a developing country. Compare the same data with Pakistan, where Malala Yousufzai comes. We have more kids dying at school by gun violence than in Pakistan. So don't you think means it's a bias? After Malala, there was a kid who stopped a bomber going and bombing in Pakistan itself in the the Peshawar region, the northern frontiers. He died. That poor kid died. He didn't get any media coverage. He didn't win a Nobel Prize. Why? Why is this bias? Is this a media thing or something? I'm very skeptical about it. And it's not like Malala or anyone. Children are children. Human beings are human beings. And as you know, I'm very optimistic. If situation has to be there, the government should step in. And if you see the Prime Minister of New Zealand, when there was a gun attack in New Zealand, see immediately banned semi-automatic usage,
Right.
right?
That's a remarkable achievement that she did.
Yeah. So my thing is, if Malala could get a Nobel Prize, every kid in the world, not only India, look at India, America. In India also, kids are, crossing the river without a boat on a rope to go and study. So if getting education was the platform, for getting education, then every kid in the world who's striving how to get educated and change people's life should get an award, Nobel Prize.
Dr. Malik, I want to come to this fact now that San Francisco recently has declared National Rifle Association as the terror organization. This organization has been playing a very active role in terms of lobbying the gun sales in US. And we have the 2017 figure which says that the National Rifle Association has spent around 5 million plus money to lobby the politicians, the different branches of the society, so that the the regulations against gun violence doesn't take place. How do you react on that development?
I hats off to the City Council of San Francisco for adopting this legislation. I think they should send a precedent to all the city council, every state. If the federal government is not doing it, at least on a state level, we should take an action what the San Francisco City Council did. So I congratulate every city council member for taking a bold decision. And NRI has been, it started, if you see the history, it started as an association, but now it's becoming a lobbying kind of an association. See, I'm not against owning people owning guns. I don't have a problem. But the government should put a checklist whom should get a gun, right? Is he mentally stable? Is he, medically stable? Because some people who are sick, they might do. If there's some people who are somebody has a psychological problem, somebody has a drug problem. Government should do extensive background check rather than going to a supermarket and picking up a gun and coming back, hey, listen, I bought this gun, right? So, and then government should also put regulations if somebody is putting guns on the pictures that are they prone, somebody pushing right wing, somebody putting violence messages. We have to be very careful. See, recently the government of America said that we will review the social media of everyone coming to America. Good one, not problem. But then when you're issuing, guns, we should do that. Check the social media. Can
So
you hear me?
you mean to say that the gun ownership is still, private gun ownership is still okay, but there has to be a background check, which every American has been saying. But we sitting in India would be extremely surprised to see that why should a individual person own a gun? Because when the state, the police, the army is there to protect the people from any attacks from inside or outside, why would an individual need to own a private gun? That's our perspective. One horrific fact that I would like to present to viewers in India and abroad, and especially to US. And you talk about protection, you talk about civil rights or right of people. In 2018, 1,200 children who died, 80% of them are below the age of 3. What kind of civilized society can kill less than 3 years of its kids due to the private ownership of guns. If this is not something a heinous crime, I think this is a bigger crime than somewhere I would like to say terrorism, because in India, in America, the death due to terrorism not even a fraction of the death due to the gun violence. Dr. Malik, with this, I would like to have your final comment, closing comment on, do you think that gun violence still, or the gun private gun ownership, what kind of actions government now should take? The Trump administration, what is the level of actions or policy interventions the Trump administration has taken so far? What kind of actions you look forward to see?
Firstly, whenever there's a gun violence, all the elected officials, they just put messages, thoughts and wishes on Twitter, on their Facebook. We don't need thoughts and wishes.
Right.
If firstly let's see from a different angle the same kid who's passed away. That kid could have been a great son to the mother. In the
Absolutely.
old age, he could have taken her care, right? He could have been a great brother. He could have been a great dad. He could have been a great husband. Vice versa, the girl could have been a great, daughter, mother. It could have, and the most important, those kids could have been the next Albert Einstein, the next Bill Gates, the next Steve Jobs.
Right.
Just right. They could have been the next Gandhi of our times, next Martin Luther King, right?
Absolutely.
And what these kids did, they did nothing. They just went to school. It's such a horrific thing. And if you pick up any religious, Semitic religious book, and if you read the story of Adam and
Mm.
his killing of his son Abel, the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran says, once you kill one human being, you kill the entire humanity.
Right.
It's if you see scriptures in a good way, you get a lot of learning from that. That's one. Secondly, is it just sitting on the fence. There are a lot of kids. When the Florida violence happened last year, the kids came on street. Everything. At least now we had this debate in during the presidential campaign also.
Mm.
Any government, whether it's Democrats or Republican, any president, me as an individual American, not as a American Democrat politician, talking this is we should think about the people first. And the fallback of gun violence is also is medical bills. Somebody who survives the gunshot, he has to pay the medical bills from their own pocket. Because in America, we don't have the safety net. Luckily in India, if you are prone to some kind of violence or anything, at least government announces certain compensation. But in America, we don't have compensation also.
That's really shocking.
So somebody who went to school, he gets shot for no reason. His parents end up paying $200,000 in medical surgeries. Don't you think it is a sad thing?
It is really sad to say
So
this.
people who are trying to develop the country, they have to suffer for all these mistakes, trauma, or any ill things of other people. They have to suffer. And I think the positives coming out of this is at least people should vote for people who are against guns violence now. Stop this gun violence. We don't need social media messages. We need actual actions on the ground. And
Ab-
one aspect of me becoming a politician was healthcare and taking care of other people. So this is one aspect that very clear about myself is I want to be part of this process where at least I could encourage people where they talk about gun violence and they start taking action.
So, viewers, Dr. Malik with us and talking about the gun violence culture in US, and we try to connect terrorism or misplaced priorities of American government when it comes to terrorism, gun violence, and the kind of lobbying behind. So, and the Nobel Prize. So, we don't go into the Nobel Prize debate today, but every children who die due to gun violence in America deserves a Nobel Prize as much as Malala Yousufzai. Now, this is the end message with which we want to conclude today's session. Keep watching. We will come back with Dr. Malik on another important uh, area or another important topic. Dr. Malik, thank you so much for being with us.